All right. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome back to the show, the one and only show. And it's me, Jackson. And on with me today is my host and co host, Peter. Welcome. Glad to have you.
Hello.
How
How
are you doing today, Peter?
I was just opening my book. I'm probably not going to be as lucky as last time. So now I need to find the correct page. Do you know what page we're on?
It is on page 60, the start of chapter 6.
Okay, I was way too far in. 70. Getting closer.
So, today we are going to discuss chapter 6 of this book, Did Man Get Here by Evolution or by Creation, which was published in 1967. We've been reading this for the past several weeks, going through it line by line by line. And we have learned a lot of stuff, a lot of information about the cutting edge of creationist arguments.
I wouldn't go as far as say that we learned anything. We've
learned that the arguments are still in use.
Yeah.
To this day.
Apart from one. And I keep forgetting it. It was the neurons.
Oh, the infinitely complex neuron.
Yeah, infinitely complex neurons. Yeah, that was it. That was a new one.
Complex neuron should be my band name if I ever have one.
Yeah.
So
Jackson and the infinitely complex neurons. That sounds like a good band.
Yeah. So let's see. They've mostly relied on just abject quote mines of various researchers at the time. A lot of non-technical sources, like they keep citing the World Book Encyclopedia, which is not a technical source. I recognize in this time it was a lot harder to get scientific citations, but I mean, I feel like you could do better than the World Book Encyclopedia. So, I know everything has certainly opened up in terms of access within the last decade or so. Go ahead.
And you have to be creative. If you have an agenda, then you have to be creative to bend things in the way you need to bend them in order to fit your narrative, and that's still a thing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
right.
I don't know if you saw Aaron's last live show. I think that was yesterday, where he had a guy on.
I haven't seen it.
He bumped in on Facebook, and yeah, he was just screaming to Aaron, "What you do is you make baseless assertions." And Aaron said, "Well, I can provide you links to what I just said, confirming that what I said is true. How about your claim? Do you have a link for me?" "Well, no, this is my own research." "Ah, so you're making baseless claims." Yeah. That went on for, I think, an hour and a half. It was fun to watch, though. But
I'm sure. Peter, we haven't had a creationist on in a long time. Well, that's not true. We had I forgot about we had, what's his name? Peter. We had other Peter Paleologos on not too long ago. So so we still get a few creationists every so often. Not nearly as many as we used to.
I just had one on my channel. A guy named Dave from Sheepdog Apologetics. And
okay.
I mean, he's a really nice guy to talk to. I really enjoyed talking to him. But he's also a young Earth creationist, so if you want, I'll be more than happy to see if he's willing to have a chat with you about
Sure.
creation versus evolution, because I think he can do with a few tips.
We get a super chat from Vandalia for $4.99. Says, "Hope your book writing is going better than mine is. Here's some funds to help." Well, we appreciate that, Vandalia. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm certainly happy to talk with creationists whenever. It doesn't matter to me. The funny thing is, and I know you're aware of them. There are creationists in the community, the YouTube community or sphere or whatever, who are like debate bros. They're always challenging people to debates, mostly people who are not, uh, well, they're not experts or they're not like researched in these fields or whatever. And the creationists have no problem talking to them, but they won't go anywhere near professionals like Dan Stern Cardinal or Erica at Guts at Given or
But
Dapper Dino,
that
whoever,
that that
or
reminds
me.
me.
They don't come talk to me either.
Yeah, that reminds me. So, someone put up a challenge. A guy I like very much. He's called Creaky Blinder. He's from Wales. I'm not going to say that
Okay.
he's from the UK or that he's from Britain. He's from Wales because I'm not going to insult him. And he asked all his viewers to make a short video for Matt Powell. So
Okay.
I thought I'm going to make a video. I thought about it, and yeah, I'm going to make a video because this particular feller was the guy who apparently scared him, along with my amazing co-host Robert. We had him on, and he rage quit when we started talking about the person King James and his sexual escapades. That wasn't something that he liked. A day after that, he canceled an appearance on your channel, if I'm remember correctly, and we thought that was
not to show up again.
Yeah, we thought that was because of me. Apparently, it wasn't, because 2 or 3 days after he canceled with you, he made a video on his own channel saying that he would never go on an atheist channel again. I'm going to tease him. I'm apparently the guy who scared him for life, because he hasn't he hasn't been around anymore.
That's true. You're right. He's not. He's still doing like sermons and stuff. Actually, no, he's not anymore. He's living at Dinosaur Adventureland now.
Yes.
With Kent Hovind. Yeah. So you're right. He doesn't do his stuff on his own. He like shares the Hovind channel, which I can only fear for his kids, because Matt Powell has children, in case you were not aware, and I fear for them, for their safety.
Matt Powell. Matt Powell has 2 kids. Kent Hovind has 2 pedophiles. Not a great combination to have.
Yeah. And I mean, there was the kid who died on the Dinosaur Adventureland, and
that too.
They just kind of shrugged their shoulders and said, Kent actually said, well, the other kid had a good time.
Yeah.
Truly heartless. But anyways.
Yeah, so I do want to make a shout out to a former DAL employee, Mark Stoney. He's running a 24/7 live stream where he mirrors all kinds of content that people have in order to expose what is going wrong at Dinosaur Adventureland, because it's not just one thing; it's an awful lot.
Yeah.
But people are interested. Find Mark Stoney. He's doing a great job. We not have to cover it.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. You ready to read some hard hitting creationism?
Yes. Let's do it.
All right. Oh, and for anyone who's joining for the first time who hasn't seen it, again, this book is from 1967. I was gifted it back when I was in high school, and so now we're just going through it. So they talked about like fossils and kinds and all that sort of stuff. Abiogenesis. So
All the good stuff.
Oh yeah, all the good stuff. So now we're doing Chapter 6. Do mutations result in new life forms? Quote, a central point, a foundation, to the entire theory of organic evolution is the belief that small mutations cause the changes that resulted in the slow transition of one form of life into another. What are the facts in this regard? Are mutations helpful? Do they ever result in new forms of life? The word mutation is from the Latin, I assume that's mature, meaning to change. A mutation is an inheritable change, an alteration within the germplasm of the cell. As Dobzhansky states, quote, mutation produces changes in the genes and variants of the gene structure. These are the raw materials of evolution, close quote. In the book, The New You and Heredity, A. Scheinfeld adds, quote, it is through the rare instances of favorable mutations of innumerable kinds and in countless numbers occurring successively over very extended periods that the whole process of evolution may now be explained, close quote. Why do mutations occur? Biology for Today says, quote, mutations probably occur due to factors normally found in the environment, cosmic rays and other ionizing radiations, metabolic processes in cells, or errors in gene replication, close quote. Do mutations occur frequently? In the book Radiation, Genes and Man by Professor B. Wallace and Theodosius Dobzhansky, we read, quote, mutational changes in any one gene are rare events. This is a different way of saying that, ordinarily, the genes reproduce themselves accurately, close quote. In Science Today, evolutionist C.H. Waddington says, quote, it happens rarely, perhaps once in a million animals or once in a million lifetimes, close quote. The 1966 World Book Encyclopedia says, quote, mutations rarely occur. Most genes mutate only once in 100,000 generations or more. This source also states, quote, researchers estimate that a human gene may remain stable for 2,500,000 years, close quote. Okay. All right. So, in one sense, yes. Mutations are the raw substrate, the raw material that natural selection and sexual selection and all the other mechanisms of evolution act upon. So you can't have evolution without having genetic variations. It's not the only way to generate variations. You also have recombination, which is where during meiosis your chromosomes line up, and then you have your mother's set, or the set you got from your mother and the set you got from your father, and they can exchange segments, and so you can end up with a chromosome that has a little, mostly it's your father's, it came from your father, but now it has a little bit of maternal DNA in it, and vice versa. And that happens, in all of us. It happens in our gametes when sperm and egg cells are being produced. So you have mutations and recombination. These are the ways in which variations are produced. And so these are variations in alleles, right? So you have a gene, and by changing a base pair in it, maybe you substitute it, you switch out an A for a C or a G or a T, for instance. Now, as a result of that, possibly you could get a different amino acid, because because there's a process called transcription. So you have RNA polymerase, and it comes along and it reads a sequence of DNA, and it produces a messenger RNA sequence, and then that messenger RNA sequence leaves the nucleus and it gets, or attaches itself to a ribosome, and then that gets translated to make amino acids. And so you have, so for each 3 base pairs in this RNA, this mRNA, you have 1 amino acid. And so you translate all of those different codons, which is what they're called, those triplets, translate those, and that becomes this really long string of amino acids, and then that gets folded by various other enzymes to form a functional protein, which then has some job, whatever it is. And so mutations can potentially change which amino acid is produced. Now, that doesn't necessarily happen because you can have a mutation and you still have the same amino acid produced, because the genetic code, which is the codon to amino acid system, is what's called redundant or degenerate. It's another term I've heard for it. And so basically, you can have more than one codon expressing the same amino acid. So you can have, AAG or AAC if you have a mutation, and you still get the same amino acid, so it doesn't matter. But so that's the basic. That's the central dogma of biology, which is not a great phrase, but we didn't make it up. So, as Peter pointed out, it's not a great phrase.
No,
we have Watson and Crick to thank for that.
Yeah. But should we cover the fact how often it happens? Because I don't think that the human gene is stable
we'll get
for
there.
2.5 million years.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, no, that's I have no idea where they got those numbers. They're ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, what Dobzhansky says is fine. What this guy Scheinfeld says is fine. So you have, in a sense, now what creationists like to say is, oh, I accept microevolution, but I don't accept macroevolution. Well, microevolution is a series of processes. Macroevolution is a way of looking at patterns. So there's no single spot where you can say, aha, this is macroevolution now. It doesn't work like that. It's not how evolution works. Speciation, technically, so this guy, Yuri Filipchenko, who was an entomologist back in the 1920s, coined the terms micro and macroevolution. And microevolution is defined as genetic change below the level of species, so these are populational differences. And macroevolution is genetic change at or above the level of species. So definitionally, speciation is macroevolution. Now, creationists don't like that, but they do accept speciation. If they accept speciation, which not all of them do, but most of them do, then they also accept macroevolution, therefore.
And that's where most of them will become mad at you because that's not how that works in their view. They want macroevolution to be an entirely different animal. It doesn't look like the animal it evolved from. And it's a dishonest way of putting it. It is as dishonest as the whole kinds thing, because kinds are supposed to be where they can still reproduce. But the Bible isn't that clear about kinds, because there are kinds of birds and there are kinds of locusts. What does that mean? How many kinds of birds do we have? And so, and then they tell us, well, species isn't well defined. No, it's not. It's kind of a gradient. It's hard to pin down where you finally got a species, and this is just due to humans wanting to put everything in boxes. If you have a gradient, we need to put okay, this color is different from that color, so that's gonna. It's just hard to do, and it's human to want to do that, to have it nicely classified so it can go and look, but that's just not how nature works.
Right. Yeah, look, if creationists want to say, oh, well, evolutionists can't define species, I'll happily say, yeah, species are arbitrary. Do you want to say kinds are too?
Yeah.
I'll happily concede that point. Species are absolutely arbitrary. All right, now you go ahead. Say it. So, yeah, it's the reason species doesn't work, for anyone who's not aware, is organism. There are lots of organisms. We're not only aware of extant organisms, we're also aware of extinct organisms.
Mm-hmm.
And the ones that are extant have very many different ways of reproducing. They're not all, it's not all sexual reproduction, which is what the biological species concept is based on. It's based on being able to interbreed.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't work for a lot of organisms for a variety of reasons. And the largest reason is that many are asexual. So you can't classify them based on sex if they don't have sex.
Mm-hmm.
Furthermore, we can't classify, non-avian dinosaurs or woolly mammoths, or Dimetrodon. We can't classify these guys based on who they were having sex with. We can't tell that. All we have are their fossils. And so, although in fairness, we do have some mammoth genomes. So with very recent organisms, we can actually get some DNA from them, which is really cool. But for most fossil organisms, we can't. And so species is just our attempt at as you said, as sort of drawing lines on gradients, which is silly, but at the same time, it has a sort of usefulness, right? Like, as Dapper likes to make the analogy, it's not correct, or driving on the left or the right side of the road, neither is correct, but you have to do one or the other to have a functional system, and that's
Yes.
basically what we're dealing with, right? You can, whichever one you pick doesn't matter. It's just you have to be consistent with one so that we can derive all these other rules from that.
Mm-hmm.
So same sort of thing, which is not the case with kinds. Kinds have to be, it has to be this kind or it has to be another kind. And they either are related or they aren't. Like, there's no gray zone there. So it's not really a symmetrical problem. Can't speak.
Yeah.
Um,
And when it comes to that, I think we've got a better definition of what a species is, or at least a better explanation of what a species is than any creationist could come up with what a kind is, because it's
yeah,
too arbitrary. And I don't think, in all fairness, this is, and to me this is a dishonesty. The people who wrote the Bible had no clue about any of this.
right.
And I think
That's not
that,
their fault for that.
no, I think they
Yeah,
used the word kind the same way we use it colloquially. Um,
sure.
and
Yeah.
that is as arbitrary as it possibly can be.
Mm. Yeah,
It's just
absolutely.
they want
Um,
they want the Bible to look like a scientific book, and it just isn't. And it's better to
yeah,
concede it's not than to have to bend over backwards and lie to people. That just doesn't make sense.
yeah, absolutely. I was watching a video. I was actually watching one of Inspiring Philosophy's videos recently, because he did one on how Genesis 1 should be read, because the way that because creationists read it as like creation ex nihilo, right? Like, it is the material creation of light and the seas and animals and all that sort of stuff. Well, interestingly, the way, so IP Michael Jones, the way he talks about it, he says we have to look at this in its cultural context, which is what you were saying. We have to think about the way that they would have thought about it when they were writing this down. They weren't talking about these things were created out of nothing. This meant something totally different in that time period, and we're trying to read into it our modern
Mm-hmm.
perception of these things, and it's just not what the text says. It's not what they
No.
would have thought back then. So, yeah, absolutely.
But then then
Um,
then you got a problem, Jackson, because then you come across mean atheists, people like me, who will then say, okay, but if it's written in that time, how come God didn't know?
oh, I'm
Because
not saying it's correct.
because he
you
would
know,
know that we're going to read this, and there are going to
right?
be people who read this in the current time frame with our current knowledge, and they're going to get it
Well, sure. Yeah.
catastrophically wrong.
Right.
And
Yeah. I mean, yeah. No, I'm not arguing that it's like, that we should give them a pass or anything. I mean,
no,
as you said, we're not reading it as a science book. We're reading it as this is another just another ancient Middle Eastern book of myths, just in the same way that the Enuma Elish was, and the Epic of Gilgamesh, and all these other sorts of things. So anyway,
if you look back at it, it was an attempt for people to conform at least a little to further society. That is what it's meant to be, and it worked back then. It wouldn't work now because times have changed. We've got different opinions about things and learned a lot more.
That is true. So he asks, why do mutations occur? And he cites a text that says mutations probably occur due to factors normally found in the environment, cosmic rays and other ionizing radiations, metabolic processes in cells, or errors in gene replication. Okay, so only one of those I'm willing to bet is like more likely to affect your germ cells than the others, and that's going to be errors in gene replication. I don't think cosmic rays are just like offhand. I don't think cosmic rays are having that big of an effect on your gametes because of where they're sequestered. So I don't know. That's just me. I could be wrong, but I don't think they're having that big of an effect. That is certainly happening, on the skin that is exposed to like the sun and other cosmic rays, for instance. So that's what causes cancer. Is you can have these rays, which cause like a dimer to form between your base pairs, and then this causes the gene to be misread or whatever, and then you can have like your cell replication machinery, the pathway can be messed up, and then you've got cancer. So that does happen, but not really in your gametes. The metabolic processes in cells, that's probably referring to like free radicals. So the way that we primarily get our energy is like through cellular respiration, right? We do this oxygenic process, but oxygen produces a lot of very toxic chemicals that have to be processed by other organelles in our body. It's basically like, that's true. That's what I was saying. Yes, Monkey for Banana says not all cosmic rays are blocked by solid objects. Yes, indeed. That's what I was saying. But that's less of an issue for your gametes and more of an issue for like your skin, for instance. What was I saying? Oh, so you have like free radicals, for instance. So because oxygen produces a lot of harmful, toxic molecules like hydroxyl radicals or superoxide, things like that, and these are produced while your body or while your cells are trying to do cellular respiration, and then these can cause your replication enzymes to malfunction or what have you, and so that's another way that you can get mutations. But really, the one I think that we're most interested in here is errors in gene replication. And so the most common type of mutation is a point mutation, right? A SNP, SNP, a single, a single nucleotide polymorphism is the technical term for it. But so you replace one nucleotide with a different one. So, and that happens a lot, primarily due to a process called tautomerization. So a lot of times when we think about molecules, we think about like it's a little stable molecule. It's just kind of bumping around, into others, but that's not always the case. And in fact, nucleotides, for instance, you can have that's not really the case for molecules generally, right? Like that's our high school or college, whatever, idea of what's happening on a molecular level, but that's not really what's happening, right? And so one example is what's called tautomerization. So basically, you have your nucleotides, and you've got like little prongs on your nucleotides. And so, if, for instance, you have a proton, a hydrogen atom, and it switches from one of those arms to the other, and it happens to do that at the same time that your DNA polymerase is coming along adding base pairs, it can recognize that base pair as the wrong one, and will, instead of adding a T to an A, it might add a G to an A by accident, and so that is a mutation. It's not supposed to do that, and so it's called a tautomer because you have a structural isomer. It has all the same atoms, and it's not gaining or losing atoms, but it's switching where certain atoms are on this molecule. And so the proton is easy to move because it's like way out here on the end of this little bond, and so it's kind of bouncing back and forth between these different atoms on the molecule. And so if it gets caught in the wrong position while the polymerase is coming along, it recognizes that nucleotide incorrectly and adds the wrong base pair, and then keeps going along. And so now you've got a mutation. So that is one way that can happen. It's not the only way, but that's an important one. And so with that in mind, let's talk about these numbers that they're offering, because these are some crazy numbers. It happens rarely, perhaps once in a million animals or once in a million lifetimes. So every single person has around 100 or so mutations, but just by the time you're a zygote, you already have 100 around. So needless to say, no, it's not 1 in a million or 1 in a million lifetimes. It's every single one of us.
Yes.
Every single person on the planet, every single organism has mutations. Dapper, hey, if you want to join the show, come on in. I'd be happy to have you. And so the point is that's just wrong. Their numbers are just crazy off on that. I have no idea where. I don't know where they got those numbers.
It might be, and this is just me being the bad atheist again. It might be that they're completely made up in order to just make the whole process look silly. And I wouldn't put it past
That's possible,
them.
Yeah.
Because these are so outrageous. I've never seen numbers like that. Not even when you're looking at old creationist stuff. These are completely off the chart. 1 in a million animals or 1 in a million lifetimes. I've never seen that.
Yeah, I really don't know where these numbers came from. I don't know where they came up with that sort of number. It's
yeah, and then the next thing they say is mutations rarely occur. Genes only mutate once in 100,000 generations or more. Wait, what? You just said once in a million. Now you're saying once in 100,000, and then
What's
you
the
go
orders of magnitude between friends.
And then you go completely nuts and say, well, for humans it's 1 in 2.5 million years. So humans
it's a million, then 100,000, then 2.5 million.
Yeah. And that was important enough to write it down in numbers, whereas he started out with just the word in a million. It's also there's an emphasis to be made here. Writing it out in numbers, that makes it a little bit more impressive than just saying 2.5 million. It's crazy how you get those differences in just this tiny paragraph.
Yeah, and they're successive sentences.
Yes.
So it's I don't understand how he went it's a million. No, it's 100,000. No, it's 2.5 million.
Yeah, I mean,
how does that happen?
Are you not reading what you're writing, or was this so hard to write that you wrote this over a period of 3 weeks and forgot what the last sentence was you wrote down?
Could be, who knows? But yeah, that's pretty crazy. All right, we ready for the next one?
Yep.
However, this encyclopedia also says, quote, most mutations are harmful. Some make it impossible for the cells in which they occur to develop and grow. Is this actually the case? Are most of the comparatively few mutations that do occur harmful? Over the past few decades, many experiments have been conducted to determine the characteristics of mutations. Particularly has this been so of the common fruit fly Drosophila melanogaster, beginning with the work of Thomas Hunt Morgan from 1866 to 1945 at Columbia University. Others, such as H.J. Muller, I don't know who that is, continued this work. Muller received the Nobel Prize in 1946 for his contributions in this field. The results of all this experimentation are clear and definite. Muller himself said, quote, most mutations are bad. In fact, good ones are so rare that we may consider them all as bad. Close quote.
Well, you froze.
Dowdeswell in the of
Yeah, you Jackson, you froze.
evolution.
You froze.
Oh, am I back?
Yeah, you're back. You might want to repeat the last.
Can you hear me?
I can't hear you. You're cutting in and out a little. So yeah, it's at the moment it's really bad.
It's not great.
Try and refresh, and I'll read until you get back, if that's okay.
Okay. Does that sound?
Okay. Okay. So, where were we? The results of all this experimentation are clear. Muller himself said, most mutations are bad. In fact, the good ones are so rare that we may consider them all as bad. Dowdeswell in the Mechanism of Evolution also acknowledges of the many mutants detected in the laboratory, all are either recessives or semi-dominants, and the majority cause harmful psychological effects. Hardly any have ever been observed who could possibly be beneficial to an organism under wild conditions. Dobzhansky also admits, quote, a majority of mutations, both those arising in laboratories and those stored in natural populations, produce deteriorations of the visibility, hereditary diseases, and monstrosities. Such changes, it would seem, can hardly serve as evolutionary building blocks. Close quote. Okay.
Am I back?
You are back. I think this is the part where we should.
Do I sound okay?
Yeah, you sound great. Video is good too. So
this is the part where what'd you say?
I think we should dissect this part. So I'm up to the end of the first quote on the next page. Oh, and it looks like you froze again.
Okay. Still hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay.
Yeah, you look. No, now sound is gone again. The creationists are invading your internet. Okay, now Jackson's gone completely. So, and I have nothing. Jackson usually starts juggling, and I don't have my juggling gear. Nope. Maybe if you kill the video, Jackson, maybe that'll help. Yeah, kill the video. Nope. cut the video, Jackson. Maybe that helps.
Okay, let's try sound.
Nope, still cutting in and out.
I did. Oh well.
So if you turn off the camera, maybe that helps. Yeah. Okay, he's gone. At least you can see Jackson's nice and shiny new logo as of today. Let's hope he can get back, because otherwise I'm gonna be pretty lost. I can read and I can still talk about it. Wait. Nope. Jackson is trying to rejoin, but this is the problem. The great United States.
Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Okay, let's try this again.
Okay.
Okay, so yeah, you got to the part where it said the evolutionary building blocks. Okay.
Yes.
So the book says that most mutations are harmful. No, this is not the case. I don't even think this was the case at that time.
No.
Well, I think by the time they were writing, it would have been a relatively new idea, so they might not have heard about it. But in the late 60s and early 70s, this idea came out, championed by Moto Kimura and, well, of course, others since, and now it's orthodoxy, which is called the neutral theory of molecular evolution. And what that theory argued was that most mutations are, in fact, neutral. They're not harmful, they're not beneficial. They're silent, basically. You wouldn't even know you had them. I mean, we all probably have many of them. And so most evolution occurs. Actually, the mechanisms of evolution, which are probably the strongest, or that occur the most often, I should say, are two. It's natural selection is one, but also genetic drift. Genetic drift is also, it occurs every single generation, even if natural selection doesn't occur. And the reason is you are going to, just by chance, transmit some of your alleles, right? The frequencies of alleles within a population are going to change by a degree of randomness every generation. That's genetic drift. It has no effect on you or your offspring or whatever. It's just neutral alleles knocking around in the population. That's all. All well and good. And so actually most mutations are neutral. Interestingly, Kimura did some math which John Sanford lied about in his book, about his first book about genetic entropy. Was it The Mystery of the Genome? I think it was. And Sanford claimed that Kimura counted the effects of beneficial mutations in this chart. He said, okay, so this is Kimura plotting the effects of harmful, neutral, and beneficial mutations all together and seeing how that would affect a population's evolution. Well, that was a lie, because what actually happened was Kimura explicitly discounted beneficial mutations, because when he factored beneficial mutations in, they drastically over accounted for the harmful and neutral mutations. So beneficial mutations can be very few and far between and have very, very major impacts on organisms, despite the fact that harmful and neutral mutations way outnumber them. So that was something that he figured out. So some make it impossible for cells to develop and grow. Yeah, that happens. That happens all the time. I think it's funny. It says, are most of the comparatively few mutations that do occur harmful? Well, they aren't few, and most of them are neutral. So you're entirely wrong. So, oh well. So they mention many experiments have been conducted to determine the characteristics of mutations. So this work with Drosophila and melanogaster that Thomas Hunt Morgan and colleagues did like right around 1900. That was basically trying to determine, what is the rate at which mutations accrue in a population? What effects do they have on fruit flies, etc. And famously, Morgan found these fruit flies that had white eyes instead of red eyes. And so that turned out to be a homozygous recessive mutation, which caused the eye pigment to not be exported to the eye, and so they resulted in white eyes. So Morgan was not like trying to evolve his flies; he was just trying to figure out how mutations work, really. And so Morgan's work actually helped lay the foundation for the neo-Darwinian synthesis in the 1930s. The work that he did by mathematically determining the rate at which these mutations occur, that factored into Ronald Fisher and Sewell Wright and J.B.S. Haldane, all their mathematics on the rate at which these mutations occurred and accrued, and how natural selection acted on them, etc. So, so he also says, yeah, most mutations are bad. In fact, good ones are so rare that we may consider them all bad. No, sorry, it's just not true. Of the many mutants detected in the lab, all are either recessives or semi-dominants. I don't know what he means by semi-dominant. I don't know what that means.
I think that's just another way to try and diminish the fact that there are mutations that will be carried through and have a positive effect. Because if they're semi dominant, then they're probably, you're going to lose those over time again, because
I don't think so, because the thing about dominant alleles is necessarily they're going to if you only need one, right? So you only need one of that allele for its phenotype to be expressed in the individual. Mm-hmm. And so if you're semi-dominant, does that mean you're heterozygous for that location? Like you have one dominant allele and one recessive allele? I personally don't know. I don't know what he means by semi-dominant, but you're right. I think it is just a way to say, like, to mitigate the effect of the mutation.
Yes, I think he doesn't know what it means either, but it just this sounds better. This suits his narrative better, and I think that's
right.
The only criteria in why he put it this way.
Right. And then Dobzhansky says a majority of mutations arising in the laboratory and stored in the natural populations produce deterioration. So a majority of them, sure. Probably a majority of them do affect viability and create monstrosities, but nobody is arguing, and I guarantee Dobzhansky isn't arguing that in that book, that they are the building blocks of evolution. No one's arguing that the harmful ones are. What we're arguing is that the beneficial ones are.
Mm-hmm.
So this is just more quote mining. So
have to make it look bad. That's all it is.
Would you like? Is there anything else you want to add?
No. That was it. It's just
okay.
Yeah, it's the recurring dishonesty in trying to make everything look bad, because if you accomplish, at least to the people who read your book, that they don't trust the science, because the science would point to everything becoming really, really bad, and we don't actually see that, then you can dismiss evolution. And I think that is what they're just trying to do.
Right.
I mean, it's what we see in most of the quote mines.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. Um, Quote: Horticulture expert Dr. W. E. Lameritz comments on the results of his work with roses. Quote: My own work on neutron radiation of roses describes a technique by which we can induce 50 radiated buds of Queen Elizabeth, more mutations than could hitherto be found in a lifetime of searching among several million rose plants grown annually from non-radiated buds. Without exception, all mutations induced were found to be defective or weaker than Queen Elizabeth. Biologically, they would hardly compete because of reduced vigor and partial sterility. Close quote. A report in the New Zealand Herald of January 17th, 1963. Aha, so it was heterozygous. Aha, thank you, histrionics. I appreciate you. A report in the New Zealand Herald of January 17th, 1963 stated, quote, whether the mutations are natural or induced by some artificial means, such as radiation, the evidence today suggests that much more than 99% of mutations are undesirable. Close quote. Professor H.J. Muller similarly stated this in an article entitled Radiation and Human Mutation in Scientific American of November 1955. He said, quote, in more than 99% of cases, the mutation of a gene produces some kind of harmful effect, some disturbance of function, close quote. In the 1963 book, Progress and Decline, Professor Hugh Miller says, quote, the relative rarity of these aberrant or mutant changes, together with their usually maladaptive and more often than not lethal effects upon development, does not incline us to assign them an important role in the maintenance of group adaptability. It should be observed that the great importance currently attached to gene mutations as a factor in evolutionary history is in part the result of erroneous expectations initially aroused by their discovery, close quote. The germplasm of living things. Oh, sorry. Well, yeah, we'll stop there. Okay. Yes. So thanks to histrionics here for pointing out that producing an intermediate phenotype in the heterozygous condition. I appreciate that. Okay, makes sense. Okay, so a horticulturalist points out that if you irradiate a plant, it becomes it is less vigorous and more sterile. Well, I'm not incredibly surprised by that. But I don't think that anybody is suggesting that we should all go around getting shot full of radiation and that will make us more vigorous. I don't think anyone's arguing that. So could be me, but I haven't heard otherwise. Okay. The evidence today suggests that much more than 99% of mutations are undesirable.
Wait, Jackson, I have to do this, and a lot of people will hate me for it. I mean, he is experimenting with Queen Elizabeth and then introducing radiation. I think that would explain the big ears of Charles. Just saying. We've got a mutation here. I mean, sounds legitimate.
Brandon Peters points out, wow, radiation is bad. Who knew, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. Who knew? 99% are undesirable. Yeah, I don't. That math does not work. That math does not work. I'm sorry. Yeah, I mean, I'm willing to bet that like 99% of cases of like radiation on humans produce something harmful. That I'm willing to believe. I could buy that. But again, and they do it again on the next.
It can be, but it can also be beneficial because we use it in medicine, applying radiation, and then if we can at least control it.
Well, we use it to kill, right? We use
Yeah.
radiation to kill cells. And so, again, nobody's suggesting that we use radiation to like improve function.
No. Although,
So,
so I watch all kinds of YouTube channels. One of the things that I watch is a channel from the UK, which brings you all kinds of fun facts through history. That there was a time in which, in the United States, you could have a radioactive ingredient in toothpaste, for instance,
oh,
and you could even have they had baths with radon because apparently the radioactive energy could be absorbed by human beings and could be beneficial for them. And this was in the late 1800s, early 1900s. So
hmm.
people have thought different about radiation, and
Right.
a lot of people have suffered because of it.
But radiation is his. We got ruby red grapefruit. I don't know what you mean there, Dapper. Um. Uh. What was the other thing he said? Okay, so he keeps going on in the section about like um radiation, and no one's suggesting radiation is the primary means by which. Oh, but radiation is how we got ruby red grapefruit. Okay, well, interesting. Um, yeah, that's very unusual. I don't know why he keeps suggesting radiation is the answer because it's not.
No.
So maybe he'll actually get to the reason that mutations happen. So, but I doubt it. I highly doubt it. Even though technically by this time, Tautomerization was known for like a decade, so he could get it right potentially, but I doubt it. So, um, all right. Uh, quote: The germplasm of living things is in delicate balance, so that any disruption is almost sure to be in the direction of disorganization. A striking example of this occurred in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, Japan. Again, more with radiation. Atomic bombs that exploded over these cities in 1945 caused many mutations. None were beneficial, and so could not be regarded as an aid to further the cause of evolution. Many resulted in damage, deformity, or death. That is why great precautions are taken by researchers working to protect themselves from radiation. Chemicals, too, can cause mutations, as we saw in the use of the tranquilizer drug thalidomide, where the mutations that resulted from its use beneficial. To the contrary, they produce horribly deformed babies, some without arms or legs. Chemicals have caused fish to develop not two eyes, but a single median eye. Is the one eyed fish better suited for survival? Is it not instead just a freak that is ill suited for survival as compared with its normal counterparts? Siamese twins are mutants, so they are regarded as having a better chance to survive than normal humans. Two headed fish have been collected in fish hatcheries, but observers are informed that they would soon die if released in the streams, as the mutation has made them inferior, poorly suited for survival. Many other mutations have been induced by experimentation. There are featherless chickens, insects having eyes with different colors than usual. So just talking about the fruit flies. Changes in the size of wings and other limbs in various organisms, but in the free state, few, if any, of such mutations confer advantages. Okay, so again, he's just listing off deformities. He's just listing off crazy deformities and then saying, haha, no evolution there, which obviously, but again, that's not what anyone is suggesting that is how evolution proceeds. Evolution is not, an organism is born with two heads by accident. Evolution is a change in allele frequencies in a population over generations. And the mutations that cause beneficial variations are typically rather small. Not typically, not always, but they are typically rather small. It'd be like point mutations, things like that. And so what will happen is you will get a mutation which causes an amino acid, a slightly different amino acid. Instead of like leucine, for instance, you get isoleucine or whatever. You get a different amino acid in this chain, which causes the protein to fold slightly differently. So, as a result, this organism may be slightly better at processing some food, for instance, right? Or, they talked about the peppered moths earlier. The peppered moth, the black morph, is a mutant, right? There was a transposon that jumped in a regulatory region, which caused the overabundance of the pigment. And so that's a mutant. And clearly that mutant had a survival value greater than the white morph under a particular set of conditions, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why doesn't he talk about that? Why is that left off the table? It's almost like they're not being honest about which types of mutations they want to discuss. How funny is that, Peter?
Yeah, and also he mentioned the thing with the one-eyed fish. Here's the thing: in evolution, some things are beneficial, even though it is a loss of things. We can see that with fish in that are living in caves that still have eyes but have skin grown over them, and so they've lost eyesight completely. To them, it's beneficial because the eyes are easily hurt. And also, if they had done that to humans, let's say in the time when we were seafaring and we had pirates, if you had a guy with one eye, he would be the excellent pick to look through the telescope because he wouldn't have to close another eye. I mean, it could be beneficial.
Yeah.
It depends on what you do, in what niche you find yourself in.
Yeah, exactly. Also, someone named Star Soccer's Institute in the live chat says viruses share no common ancestor. Bad for you. Well, I mean, lots of viruses do share common ancestors, but all viruses don't share a single common ancestor. That's true. I don't know how that's bad for me, though. Is this the same dude who was saying 2 weeks ago that the fact that archaea and bacteria have different phospholipids, therefore they're not related? Is this that same dude? Because this argument is equally bad if it is. I'm sorry. No one thinks that all viruses share a single common ancestor. Anyway. Okay. All right. Mutations are compared with accidents in the genetic machinery of living things. Right, so refute it. Refute what? We agree. It's not an argument. We don't agree that viruses share common ancestry, so it's literally not an argument. So, thanks, I guess. You agree with us? Okay, anyway. They are more like the wrecking of an automobile, not the building of one. An accident is not associated with improvement, but with disaster. Dropping a delicate watch or throwing a wrench into a computer's mechanism is not calculated to improve performance. An appeal to immense spans of time, millions of years, does not change the picture. What was impossible yesterday and is impossible today will be impossible tomorrow in this regard. If an automobile accident yesterday did not produce improvement in its mechanism, is it likely to do so today or tomorrow? And even if we were to grant that 1 out of 100 accidents might improve the automobile, what of the following 99 accidents that will be harmful? How much will be left after 99 harmful accidents? Is it functioning at all? If it is functioning at all, it will still be an automobile, but an inferior one. Okay, we'll put a pin in that for a second. Star Soccer saying they have multiple origins that reduces the chance they had a natural non-designed origin? No, my dude. We know how. What do you call it? Selfish DNA elements arise and get transferred between different organisms. That is not an argument. I think you're the same guy. You're still making bad arguments. I guess we can continue on with this, just saying the same thing. With living things, it is the same over a great span of time. The line of the organism will be injured by the 99 harmful mutations, making it less suited for survival. Even if it did survive through many generations, it would only be a weaker species, and certainly it will not have turned into a new kind of life. I don't know what to tell you other than, like, automobiles are not organisms. They don't reproduce with inherent variations. Sorry? Analogies don't work. Sorry.
Yeah, and if you keep crashing your automobile, you should just turn in your driver's license and don't drive anymore because why? This guy is having 100 accidents with one in the same automobile? I don't think so.
they're what do you call it? Fender benders. He just like lightly tapping the car in front of him. Could you imagine what his insurance is like? I mean,
yeah. This is why we have to pay so much on insurance. We got people like this trying to crash every single time. Let's see if I can improve my car. Oh, there's a nice tree. Wham! That didn't improve.
Let's try it again tomorrow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good Lord. Quote, this brings us to another fact that must be considered. Not one of the thousands of experiments with mutations have ever resulted in the production of a new kind of animal or plant. Mutational changes always remain within the basic genesis kind to which the animal or plant belongs. All the many mutations induced in Drosophila produced only fruit flies belonging to the same kind as their ancestors. While their sizes, shapes, and colors were varied, no mutation or series of mutations ever resulted in a different organism. The truth of the entire matter concerning mutations is as was stated in the Bible and modern science. Quote, when one considers the great odds against the mutations being helpful and surviving in the struggle for existence, then realizes that the formation of a new species would require not one mutation but thousands, and finally considers the tremendous number of species of plants and animals in the world, it would seem to demand the most amazing credulity to imagine that here's the method by which evolution takes place, and yet that is precisely what is taught as gospel truth in probably the majority of schools today. Close quote. Considering all the facts impartially, one arrives at the logical conclusion that mutations are not at all evolutionary in nature, but are degenerative. Interestingly, the Encyclopedia Britannica, although supporting evolution, admitted, quote, although combinations, reshufflings, and duplications of existing genes may give rise to many mutations, they can hardly account for the vast changes which have taken place in organic evolution, close quote. Okay, also, I do want to point out before we get into this that Star Soccer Dude is arguing that God routinely creates more viruses. Thanks, I guess. Because he says they have multiple origin, which reduces the chances they would have had a natural, non-designed origin. And since new viruses continually evolve, that means God is continually creating new viruses.
Yeah.
That's what you must be arguing. Yeah. Because these viruses there are new viruses, right? These things evolve. So they evolve, in real time. We have AIDS within the past few decades, COVID-19, which okay. He said either your argument is.
He says he didn't say
that.
No, you did say that. You just didn't realize what you were saying.
Yes, you said so. They have quote. So they have multiple origins, and that reduces the chance they would have had a natural, non-designed origin. That's what you said. What that means is God must be routinely creating more viruses,
Mm-hmm.
which, thanks, I guess, God. We appreciate it. We don't really.
Or he has
But
or he has some kind of Pandora's box where he just opens it and think, okay, let's pick this one. Now I'm going to let that one loose. I created that 6,000 years ago. It's still alive. So let's see what it does.
yeah. Okay. So. So
Yeah,
the
see?
canard about the new
He says
yeah,
God created
the
the viruses at the beginning. So he's kept them hidden. And then
he created all viruses at the beginning. So many of them have just been hidden until recently, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh, that works. Dapper says weird guys. Yeah. So the canard about they're still within the same kind, which we talked about a couple episodes ago. Or was it last episode? I think it was last episode. The law of monophily. Because what creationists expect is that basically a fruit fly will give birth to a frog. That's what they expect. They want it. They want an organism in one kind, whatever that means, to give birth to an organism that is of a different kind. They want a dog to give birth to a cat, right? And this isn't just me saying that, right? This is something they actually ask for. That's what the crocoduck is. They want to find hybrids of different organisms in the fossil record.
Weirdly enough, they want one kind that is currently present on Earth to give birth on to another kind that is also present on Earth.
Yes. So yeah, no, it's completely bogus. I don't remember if we talked about it in this series, but I know Dapper and I did in our evolution series. One of the things we discussed was the Chlamydomonas experiment. So you basically have these unicellular algae, and what Matt Herron and other researchers have done is they subjected these unicellular algae to selective pressures where they were forced to become multicellular. They evolved very simple multicellularity. They basically just divided. They divided their somatic and gametes, right? Instead of being both the somatic and gamete at once. So that happened in an experiment. Now, do the Chlamydomonas who are now multicellular, are they no longer Chlamydomonas? No, it's still the same, right? They're still descendants of those original unicellular algae, but they're just not unicellular anymore. Well, unless they're gametes, then they divide into a multicellular body. But it's still the same kind, right? It's still part of the same lineage, therefore it's still the same kind. So you have to. What creationists will never provide us is a means by which to determine when something is no longer considered part of its original kind, whatever that is. Provide us with that, because if you can't, and they won't, then you don't have science.
I'm looking at the chat. So Star Suckers Institute said if there were no viruses right at the beginning and so forth. Star Suckers Institute, I hate to have been Noah or one of his companions on the boat, because someone had to carry a lot of those viruses. So they must have not been feeling that well for an entire year while having to feed all the animals on the boat.
Right.
I mean,
yeah, they had AIDS and COVID and the flu and everything else all at once.
And this is the thing, and for people who don't know it, Non-Stamp Collector did a brilliant video on Noah's flood, where they were building the boat and trying to get all the animals together and sorting out which animal goes where. And he touched on the whole viruses thing. I can only imagine sitting around the campfire rolling a dice. Okay, you get COVID-19. Okay, you get the flu. Oh, you're lucky. You only get the flu. and and you're going to get the common cold, and it's to me it's just too funny. It
That is
starts
pretty funny.
thinking about what you're saying, Star Suckers. Start
Viruses
think,
exist in.
yeah.
That's not the issue. They can't replicate if they're not within a host organism. So.
Some can't even survive if they're not in a host organism. So.
Yeah, exactly. They disintegrate. They fall apart due to environmental conditions. So yeah, something has to be carrying them at any given time, or else they die.
Makes you think. I mean, you got a boat full of sick animals and sick people, some of which would have extensive diarrhea for an entire year. I would not want to be on the boat.
He says no bacteria exist in the ocean. Did you what? Did you say? I don't remember saying anything about bacteria. Do you? I don't understand what he's even talking about right now. Anyway. So again, they don't cite any instances of organisms like actually gaining structures or features in nature. All they talk about are degenerative examples, and as RJ and I discussed in The Rocks Were There, Volume 1, that's all the professional creationists do. Yeah, who said anything about ocean bacteria? I don't know anything about that.
I figured it out. He said earlier, Peter has no clue. Viruses exist as well in water. Yes, they do. But there are viruses that need to
the same?
That need to be in there are viruses that need to be in a host. And yeah, viruses are not bacteria. Yeah. So
does he think they're the same? I don't know.
I think they are of the same kind, Jackson. I think that's where we get it wrong.
Viruses and bacteria are the same kind.
Yeah.
One arrives at the logical. So this thing about that the formation of new species requires typically thousands of mutations. Yeah. Okay. So I was actually reading a paper not too long ago about these killifish, and so just between different strains of killifish, so the same species, not a different species, the same species, there are like 3 million base pair differences between these two different strains of the same species of killifish. Now, by creationist logic, it's the same species. Mm-hmm. It's not even a different genus. It's the same species. Then, by that logic, they have to accept that organisms can accrue millions of mutations. So I don't, over lineages, over generations, of course. But then what is the issue here? I don't understand. So I just don't get that. But also, new species can arise as a result of single mutations. They can. That's like you can have polyploidy, for instance, where you have a miscopying of however many chromosomes that you're supposed to get, and so you get too many or too few or whatever, and that results in new species. That's what happened with Procambarus virginalis, the marbled crawfish.
I can't help it. We have a creationist of approximately the same intelligence in the side chat. When you read the whole thing, the first thing that came to mind was Ray Comfort. Have you seen a Cavendish banana? If you think that mutations don't get us something completely different, have you tried an original banana ever?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So, that's really all I have to say about that. Do you want to add anything?
No. I think so. One thing I did want to get back to the whole car thing, where it's not beneficial to have crashes because it's not going to improve the car. I'm a car fanatic, and for decades we now have crash tests, which improve the structure of cars and make car safety a lot better. If you compare cars from the 1950s with modern cars, you're much more likely to survive in a car that is made in the current decade than you would be in one of those old ones. So yes, car crashes are beneficial to the development of cars, but that is because cars don't reproduce. We're not
Right.
using the
Exactly.
exact same car to crash into the exact same tree every single time, hoping that we'll get something better. This is creationist logic, rehashing everything, hoping to get a different outcome. We're reading a book from 1967 with arguments that you're still using today, which are debunked probably shortly after 1967. Maybe even
Yeah.
before. So,
Yeah, I'm pretty sure most of these arguments were bad when this book was written. So,
yeah.
Natural selection quote, there is no favorable trend to mutations, but instead, there is an unfavorable trend, a downward degenerative trend. What then does this fact have to do with the other part of the modern theory? That is the part called natural selection. Oh boy, we're going to get a natural selection toss off. In his book, Charles Darwin, De Beer writes, natural selection controls evolution. It is claimed that nature keeps selecting beneficial mutations and rejecting harmful ones so that one kind of life eventually becomes another, improved kind. But since more than 99% of mutations are harmful, what is there for nature to select? If an organism did have a beneficial mutation, which is highly questionable, but then this same line had a host of harmful mutations, nature, if it did anything, would reject this organism because it would be inferior. Natural selection would actually be the enemy of evolution, just as mutations are. Natural selection or survival of the fittest never produces anything new. Because a living thing has survived, that does not mean it evolved. If a hen hatches a dozen chicks and some are killed by predators, does that indicate they evolved? No, all it indicates is that some chicks survived while the others died. This selection by nature in no way changes the chick to something new. Okay. Um, uh, where to begin? Okay. So, nature. Okay, so if an organism did have a beneficial mutation, then this same line had a host of harmful mutations. Nature would reject this organism. Based on what? I don't. If they're all very minor harmful mutations, and you have one, and as the math shows, the beneficial mutations way overpower the harmful mutations, then no, nature would select for that organism, that set of alleles. They'd be selected for, not against. So no, natural selection would not be the enemy of evolution. Natural selection never produces anything new. Yes, of course. That's because natural selection is a selecting process. It doesn't itself produce things. It selects from the current gene pool. If a hen hatches a dozen chicks and some are killed by predators, does that mean they evolved? I guess it means, does that mean they were naturally selected? Well, yeah. They were eaten. They were subtracted from the gene pool. So I would say, yes, that is natural selection.
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand why that's a problem. I don't know. Do you want to add anything to that?
This is again the dishonesty. So if you have a beneficial selection, a beneficial mutation, you also have a lot of bad mutations as well, and that's why the beneficial one doesn't survive. This is just stupid. I mean, it doesn't always happen. It could happen, and you could have detrimental mutations, so that the beneficial one wouldn't survive, I guess.
Mhm.
But it's not a given that every single time you find a beneficial mutation, that then means that you have a dozen of bad ones. This is not how it works.
Right. Right.
Most mutations are neutral, so um, and as you said, it depends on how the beneficial mutation turns out and what the detrimental mutations are. I mean,
Oh, we have Neil the 604 atheist
yeah.
in the chat. Hello.
Hey, Neil.
I guess I didn't say hello earlier, so hello, Neil and Brandon Peters and
Right.
.NET Linux enthusiast Brian Stevens, Caliban, Dapper Dinosaur, um, so
All right.
Histrionics. Welcome everybody. Glad to have you. Okay. All right. Quote: Evolutionists themselves even express dissatisfaction with the combination of mutations and natural selection as being the mechanism of evolution. In the book Science Today, confirmed evolutionist. Okay. Confirmed evolutionist Sir James Gray said, quote, all biologists are not equally satisfied. Some feel that the argument gets uncomfortably close to a point when an adequate number of monkeys gets uncomfortably close to a point when an adequate number of monkeys tapping typewriters for an adequate length of time will inevitably produce an encyclopedia. Such a thing, of course, is conceivably possible, but nobody in their senses takes such things into consideration in everyday life. Okay? We either have to accept natural selection as the only available guide to the mechanism of evolution and be prepared to admit that it involves a considerable element of speculation, or feel in our bones that natural selection operating on the random mutations leaves too much to chance. If we look on organic evolution as one of nature's games of chance, it seems just a little strange that she should have dealt quite so many winning hands, but your guess is as good as mine, close quote. In the same book, evolutionist C.H. Waddington, a professor of animal genetics from Edinburgh University, said of mutations and natural selection, quote, this is really the theory that if you start with any 14 lines of coherent English and change in one letter at a time, keeping only those things that still make sense, you will eventually finish up with one of the sonnets of Shakespeare. It strikes me as a lunatic sort of logic, and I think we should be able to do better, close quote. And remember what evolutionary biologist Roston said, quote, no, decidedly, I cannot make myself think that these slips of heredity, have been able, even with the cooperation of natural selection, even with the advantage of the immense periods of time in which evolution works on life, to build the entire world with its structural prodigality and refinements, its astounding adaptations, close quote. It is little wonder that in his 1965 book, The Geography of Evolution, George Gaylord Simpson, the renowned evolutionist, said, quote, search for the cause of evolution has been abandoned. It is now clear that evolution has no single or simple cause, close quote. Does all of this sound like evidence for the fact of evolution? Most assuredly not. No, at best, natural selection or survival of the fittest can only mean separating the strong from the weak. But a new kind of plant or new kind of animal is never the result of survival alone. And since new kinds of living things do not result from mutations either, evolution is left completely without a mechanism that could account for it. Okay. Oh Lord. Alrighty. So first of all, I think the phrase confirmed evolutionist is hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
Like he was baptized in the water of Charles Darwin, I guess. I don't know. What does confirmed evolutionist mean?
I have no clue whatsoever. I mean, who could there are two ways to look at it. So you could see it as a baptism. Also, it could be that there are these creationists that are confirming who's an evolutionist and who isn't. So that one's
Right.
confirmed. That one's
He's on the list.
He's on the list. Yeah.
Right.
The whole
I
the
guess
whole
that makes us confirmed evolutionists too, doesn't it?
the whole term evolutionist to me is something that I never seem to grasp. What makes an evolutionist different from, let's say, a globe earther or someone who thinks that computers are real and working?
Right.
We accept
Yeah.
science at the point we're at, and when new evidence comes in, we might change our mind about things. Does that make us bad? I don't think so.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so Star Soccer's Institute is confirming this. He's a confirmed creationist now because he's still arguing that the science that we hold to is 160 years old. No, we have some new things that have come about lately. Genetics, for instance.
Yeah.
More
I mean,
fossils.
nobody uses the origin of species to argue for evolution. Nobody does.
Yeah,
that is ridiculous.
It's weird. It's weird that you should have one book and then stop thinking and just hold to the one book.
You still believe in natural selection. Yes, you can literally test natural selection. It is defined as the differential reproductive success in a population. You can test that. You can subject a population to a pressure and see which ones survive and what alleles predominate. That is like done every single day.
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
The fact that we understand natural selection is why you can eat broccoli, because we apply the pressure on certain things and that selects for certain things, and then you get different stuff. It's called artificial selection. It's how you get all kinds of dogs. Same thing. We understand how it works, so we can make it work for us. It's literally...
The gene-centric view has been long disproved. By who? Find me one person. Please, go ahead. Have at it. Good Lord. This dude's just a troll. He's just a troll.
Or he might...
useful to say.
Or he might be up for the next Nobel Prize. Who knows? Jury's still out.
Yeah, somehow you have no idea what epigenetics means. You do not know what it means. I promise you. You do not know. And you're going to go and Google the definition right now, but that's not going to mean anything to you. Oh my God. Signaling networks are formed by genes that make proteins that have different functions. What are you talking about? That is inherently gene-centric. What are you talking about? Oh Lord. I hate
someone has started calling Star Suckers Otangelo. Could be.
No. Epigenetics is not the main player in constructing organisms. It is so epigenetics, let's talk about this for a minute because this idiot doesn't know what he's talking about. Epigenetics is changing the regulation of DNA without affecting the actual sequence of nucleotides. That's what epigenetics means. Epigenetics means above genetics. So you have things like methyltransferase, which is an enzyme. So you have a gene for methyltransferase, and what it does is it transfers a methyl group, so CH3, to a section of the DNA, and that affects the expression of a sequence of DNA, or to a histone protein, depending on which way you're doing it. He's saying epigenetic languages. He has what? Phosphorylation has. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? This dude is just spewing words out. This is Autangelo. Autangelo, is that you? Come on, Autangelo. Is it you? Because it sounds like it's Autangelo. So epigenetics. So you have like genetic factors which can predispose you towards like certain conditions, for instance. And if you're put in a certain environment or you intake certain foods more than you should, for instance, then that genetic predisposition causes you to have this condition, whereas if you didn't have that predisposition, you probably wouldn't have this condition, right? So, yeah, this is Autangelo. Autangelo, we know it's you. And you know what? I'm muting you again. Goodbye. Goodbye, Autangelo. We know it's you. We know it's you. We know it's you. Okay. It took me longer than it should have to realize it. My bad.
Well, just for once, if they're not gone already because they're now gone from the chat. Instead of arguing all this, why not come up with some decent evidence for your God? That would be shocking, and that would make us tune in and listen.
Yeah. So the other thing about this was I really hate the analogy of the monkeys on typewriters, because I hate analogies in general. Like, creationists have just ruined analogies for me broadly because all their arguments are terrible analogies.
I think Dawkins came up with a much better analogy, and that is, you put the monkeys not in front of typewriters, but in front of one-armed bandits, and then you have a hold button, and you have them pull the lever, and whenever a preferable character comes up, you can press the hold button, and then at some point you will have a jackpot all across the board. This is how it works with natural selection. It's not Yeah, it's not randomly typing.
Right, exactly. And so that's why I hate this analogy is it's just the monkeys randomly typing, and well, one of them eventually might randomly type out, one of the Shakespearean sonnets. Okay, yeah, but that's not how natural selection works. You don't just have endless random variation with no selection whatsoever. That's just not how it works. The other thing was, he says, this guy Sir James Gray says that we have to accept natural selection as the only available guide to the mechanism of evolution, which no, you don't. Technically, that wasn't even true then, because you had sexual selection also. But now we have even more mechanisms than just natural and sexual selection. We have genetic drift, we have gene flow, we have endosymbiosis. There are lots and lots of different ways that evolution proceeds. So this is just not correct. Again, they did the same thing. They just sort of repeat the line about the Shakespearean sonnets, so we can ignore that. Yeah, Rostand. We talked about him in a previous episode because he was he the world famous evolutionist? Was that him?
I
think it was.
I can't remember, but it could be.
But yeah, this is a dude who like nobody's really heard of before, and we looked him up, and he has some accomplishments, but nothing super huge.
I doubt he was confirmed.
Right, he's an alleged evolutionist.
Yeah,
he's not confirmed.
He's still a choir boy. He's not confirmed.
Right. So yeah, meh. Yeah, I don't buy this argument. Oh, and then it's another quote mine from Simpson. Search for the cause of evolution has been abandoned. It is now clear that evolution has no single or simple cause. Yeah, Obviously, duh, of course. That's not wrong. That's perfectly correct.
Well,
Dapper
it's
says he was
partially
hidden,
it's
but he was so
partially
funny.
correct. I doubt that the search for a cause will ever be abandoned because we don't know if there are more causes that we don't know about
Well,
yet.
well, it says search for the causes and the single cause
Yeah,
because the is italicized.
that
So I'll agree with that. Dapper says in the side chat he was hidden, but he was so funny. Yeah, okay. So I muted Octangelo previously, um, because I don't think he's funny. I don't think he has anything interesting or useful to say.
mhm.
But it is interesting to me that he cares enough about this channel to make a sock account to try to come back.
Oh, so
I
he didn't.
appreciate that.
Hold on, he didn't make a sock account. Otangelo has lots of sock accounts. All he has to do is just
Okay, all right,
rename one, and then he can come across as a fresh account. He has lots
right,
of sock accounts.
right. Um,
As do I, one of which is Otangelo. Not kidding. And I have a lot of
you have
fun
an
with that one.
Otangelo sock account?
I have an Otangelo sock account.
Oh my god, that's so funny.
And at times I
Um,
can actually be in a side chat and make people think that I'm actually Otangelo.
oh my god, that's so funny. Um, so the next chapter is going to be about DNA, and then
I love the title.
ooh, we should see if Erica will come on for this one because
Oh,
we have
that
one about 8 men as our ancestors.
that would be great. I love the title already. Heredity keeps family kinds separate. Family kinds. More kinds.
Right? There's the family kind.
We have a family kind.
Yeah, we should see if we can get Erica to come on for this one. She might enjoy hanging out with. This is the how old is man chapter? It's very long. So really, living testament to a creator. Okay, well, okay. So why do so many believe? Okay, so chapter 10 is the last science chapter.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't there another one? Wasn't there another one after chapter 10? We talked about reading one more after that, if I remember correctly.
Let me.
Let's see if I can find it. Why has wickedness been permitted? How much longer will it be? I thought we had. Oh well. Marvelous future. I don't know. Anyway, at the very least, we're gonna read up to chapter 10 in this book. Maybe we can get Erica to join us for chapter 9. Who knows? We'll see about that. Always happy to have on other guests, people in the chat. Neil, Dapper, if you guys want to come on in the future. Um, so overall, just more quote mines, right? It's just more quote mines. That's all it's been, and just hilarious misunderstandings of natural selection. Really, it didn't say anything new or shocking about mutation, but their argument for mutations. The arguments they're making about mutations here are the same ones being proposed today by creationists. There was a guy named Brian who ran the channel a bit of orange, who I accidentally more than once called annoying orange. No, Neil, I'm not being camera shy. We my I was being slow with my Louisiana internet, so we felt it was best for me to be off camera. But I'm on at the beginning. If you start from the beginning of the show, yeah, I called him annoying orange by accident on more than one occasion. um, but and then we had that chat with him, which was wild. But one of his videos, because I did a a response or review of like his series, And he makes the same arguments. He says, "Oh, well, evolutionists believe mutations occur due to like radiation." Like, well, that's a way they can occur, but that's not the primary way by which they occur. So, like, no,
Speaking
that's not really how that works.
speaking about annoying,
Oh,
I recently had a conversation with someone, and I was really, really surprised. They made a new channel supporting liberals and even atheists. And this was the artist formerly known as Mr. Gaiman.
wait, what?
See, that was what I thought. And they followed me on
Isn't he
Twitter.
just a troll, though?
Yeah, they followed me on Twitter. It's okay. I looked at the channel, and they're apparently I have no clue. They're part of the LGBTQ community right now. There's no there, he's got long hair now. I have no clue how
So
he's
is he
identified.
not a troll anymore?
I honestly couldn't say, because there are he does cooking videos, among other things.
But like, is he still wearing the stupid like glasses
Nope.
and nose?
Nope. He's on camera with his actual face.
Really? Oh,
Yes.
okay. Well, good for him.
And yeah, deleted the entire old channel where he used to mock the likes of you and me, and Paula Gia was one of his favorites, and I think you and RJ had a conversation with him about evolution. I
Yeah.
recall. So
Yes,
yeah,
we did. That was back while I was at LSU still.
Yeah.
We had him on and chatted with him for a bit, and he just kind of lobbed us some pretty normal like creationist questions. He was a nice guy, but yeah, he was trolling everybody. He wasn't serious at the time. So if he's serious now, then yeah, good for him.
his video series with Not Your Witness was hilarious. They were giving each other teacher points and taking teacher points away, something like that. That was hilarious.
Yeah.
And I used to watch that a lot. But yeah, apparently the church is lying to you. Who knew?
Wait, the church is about what?
About a lot of things.
What do you mean?
About evolution, about the LGBT.
Is that what he said?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Wow.
And I for the life of me can't remember the name of the channel. It was something with cow. It's so the icon of the channel is a cow. And it's still
I'm happy for him.
Kind of trolly content, but yeah, completely switched. No longer predominantly Christian, although he said he's not come out as an atheist yet. So we'll have to wait for that.
Well, if you can find that, yeah, like shoot the link to me on Twitter. I'd love to see it.
I will.
But yeah, that's interesting. There are a few other people. It's kind of funny because it tends to be the younger people. Because if I remember correctly, he's fairly young.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Guy, man. But another guy, there was that other kid who was part of like the Standing for Truth group. I can't remember his name now, but he was a kid, like an actual like teenager or something like that. And he had a variety of conversations with different people. Maybe Dapper can remember if you're still listening.
I know who you're talking. He was on my channel as well.
But he also gave up, or he became. I think he sort of like gave up creationism, and then something happened where he kind of like vanished online. So,
oh no, that
he like really.
No, then we're talking about a different one.
Well, his presence is very much. Did he revert to YEC? Are we sure he reverted? Are we sure he reverted? Guzman, yeah.
I still
Yeah, are we
think.
sure he reverted, or was it just that like he's under the thumb of his parents and that's what's happening right now?
Yeah, I think Guzman is slowly getting away from young Earth creationism, which
Reverted, yeah, quotes, yeah. I feel bad for the poor kid. I, yeah, I'm, yeah.
yeah,
I'm
wasn't
curious
these
to see where that goes.
what didn't he want to study something and get into paleontology, something like that? I think that was
Yeah,
his goal.
he also, well, he wanted to do that, and also Paleologos wants to be an anthropologist.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I'm very curious about their trajectories long
I
term.
I spoke to
So
Guzman not too long ago, and so from what I got from that conversation is that he was slowly getting away from the young Earth creationism thing. You don't see
yeah,
him hanging out with the likes of Matt Powell anymore. At least I haven't seen him around
yeah,
there any.
yeah. He was friends with like Standing and Matt and all those guys, and
Mm-hmm.
and he realized they're a bunch of idiots. So here's what it is.
Yeah.
Um,
Should we mention the
so
videos that Dr. Dan and Erica did about standing for truth? I think we should mention it that people go
oh
watch
sure, and
those.
Dapper Dan, or was it Dapper Dinosaur, Dan Strung Cardinal, and Erica Gutsick Gibbon all put out videos about the terrible behavior that Standing for Truth and Company have exhibited. Um, really, within the past, what he's been on for like 3 years now in the YouTube scene, 2 to 3 years, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
At least active, I guess. And so he's been terrible. His behavior is appalling, and people shouldn't go on his channel.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I found it on Twitter, Cognitive Cow, and then in brackets, formerly Dr. Gaiman. And the pinned
It's
tweet.
interesting that he still associates with his former.
There is a video of his transition from Cognitive Cow, from Dr. Gaiman to Cognitive Cow, and so his pinned tweet is a link to one of his videos. Help our glorious Democratic Party. Defeat the insurgency of evangelical. Wait, what?
Wow. He did switch. Wow, how about that? It says,
Yeah.
Dr. Gaiman was a pile of misogynistic Republican garbage, and I'm sorry to have stained your brains with it. Deleted everything, starting a new channel promoting liberal and atheist social causes.
Yep.
Wow, okay. Well, I'm going to follow him, I guess. Wow, okay.
Yeah, he has 2 followers now. Okay, he's got 3 now. He'll like that.
Cognitive Cow on Twitter.
Yeah. Well, and people say, why do you do this? I still think that at least he wants to come across as a trolly person, or maybe that's his kind of humor.
Yeah.
But apparently, the conversations that we had with him, in the end, had some kind of effect. Because this is a big turnaround. I mean, Democrat, vaccinated, pro-choice, feminist, LGBT, ally. That was literally everything he was against.
Yeah.
So, who knows?
Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely correct, Peter. It's stories like that are the reason we do this at the end of the day, right? I mean, Dapper and I were on a channel. Oh, dang, this was over a year ago now. Time flies when you're having fun, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Well, Dapper and I were on a channel where we talked with a guy who was a creationist, And we were told going into the chat that this guy's a young Earth creationist who's got some questions. And so Dapper and I were, of course, happy to humor him. Well, by the end of the chat, he was done with young Earth creationism. He was like, I can't follow young Earth creationism anymore. And that's why we're here.
Yeah.
It's stuff like that. If we can get people out of that mindset, then yeah, absolutely. I mean, I love learning about.
It's why I chose my online name, Gonna Go For It. And one of the first things that I tweeted when I had my first account way back is, if I can change one person's mind, then my work is paid in full. Over time, I've had several emails of people thanking me for the things that I do and for the people I link them to, because it's not just me. I try to actually get them to watch the entire community, so I will point them to the different channels depending on where their interests lie. And every single time you get an email like that means an awful lot to me. That means that what we're doing is actually important. And
Yeah, absolutely.
Recently, Arn Ra was a guest on Creaky Blinder, and they had an evangelical minister in the live chat, and she hopped on to have a conversation with both of them as well. 2 weeks ago, she was in the live chat on Ra's channel, where we were doing the Bible lessons, and said, after we had our conversation, I had a good think about everything. And you might be happy to know that I have left the ministry and now consider myself an atheist. That was mind-boggling. That was a minister.
Yeah. I mean, and the thing is, like, I'm just trying to get people to accept evolution, right? Like, you don't have to. I'm not saying you have to be an atheist or anything like that, right? And I know Aaron doesn't either. He's not, saying you have to be an atheist or whatever. But yeah, we want to reach across the aisle to other people who might not necessarily agree with us on all things, and show them that we're not trying to take advantage of you. We're not trying to be dishonest or anything like that. We're just showing you this is what the facts are. This is what we can demonstrably show. And, here it is. We hope you accept it. And in many cases, it doesn't work for one reason or another. But in a few cases, it does. And those are the cases that make all the difference. Yeah. It's those people who make all the difference for us.
Yeah. And it's not just the science, because, and this is one of the things that I hate most about young Earth creationism, it's the grifting. If I see people like Kent Hovind pulling in $2 million a year to build his stupid dinosaur Adventureland, if I look at Ken Ham, who spent $118 million to buy to build an ark, and is now trying to build the Tower of Babel, you're getting fleeced. These people are making millions off of you by keeping you stupid. Because I'm convinced that at least within Answers in Genesis, there are a lot of people who know that it's complete bogus what they're trying to make people believe.
Yeah.
And it's all about the money.
That's true. That's true. It is all about the money.
Yeah.
So, the Tower of Babel, wasn't the whole point of the story that it was a bad idea to build the Tower of Babel? And now Ham's like, yeah, let's do it again.
Let's do it again. Well, let's hope God will reward him in the exact same way that he did with the original one. One can only hope.
What? That would make a lot of Christians in the world. I'll say that. Yeah, I love Dapper says, I love the Tower of Babel idea because it's lose-lose for Ham. if I remember correctly, I believe it's the ending of The Stand, which is a Stephen King novel, and God reaches down and like grabs a nuke. Well, if God could reach down and like knock over the Tower of Babel, I think that would be equally funny, and would, that'd be it right there. I'd be convinced. I don't know about you, that would
I
convince me.
I'd love to see. I'd love to see how they at some point won't be able to understand each other. Where you see Ken Ham talking to Georgia Purdom, and none of the two have any clue what the other is talking about because the languages are confused.
Yeah, that would also be pretty funny. All right, so Peter, what's going on your channel?
I think I'm going to take a little bit of a holiday because Arn's going to be away for at least 2 weeks, so I'm not streaming for Arn while he's digging for fossils. And I thought just going to have a little break on my end. We just did our Sunday thing on Discord, our bi-weekly Sunday thing. That's the thing that I'm still going to do. So that's not this weekend, but the next weekend. And that's going to be live streamed on Randolph Richardson's channel, on JL Warren's channel, and I think at some point I'm also going to set up a live stream because we have our secondary channel. Maybe I'm going to stream it there, and that is kind of a call-in show where we have a panel of people answering questions. Usually, one of the first people to show up is Otangelo, so it's always fun. But yeah, I still have the a young Earth creationist who wants to come back. We had an interesting talk offline where he said that he was going to have the kids in his church watch the show that we did with him, and then maybe they could pitch him some questions. To which I said, "Go and ask your church if they can set up a live stream, and let's do that live with the kids in your church. They can all ask us questions." That to me seemed like a very good idea. And even though he thought it might be a good idea, he said it's probably not something the church wants to do. And I get why they wouldn't
Yeah.
want to do that.
I mean, I would love like the crazy like fundamentalist Baptist guys. I'd love to go to like offer to do like a PowerPoint or something. Go to one of their churches and just explain the basics of evolution.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'll field whatever questions you have, no problem.
Yeah, that's
But
not going
they're
to
never
happen,
gonna do
Jeff.
that. So,
That is
no,
not
they'll
going to
they'll
happen.
never do that.
No, no, but so asking an atheist questions, I think that would be a really good idea, and
Yeah.
but I don't think that there is a church that is so confident in how they taught their young ones that they're going to expose them to a real live atheist in real time. That's not
Yeah.
that's not something they want to.
Well, which is funny because you have guys like Greg Kokel who make these like these classes quote on how to confront atheists,
Mm-hmm.
but they don't ever have the atheists like actually in there. Why
No.
why is that? How could that be?
Yeah.
um,
We're
so
doing
there's that.
something right. If they don't want us near there, then we're doing something right.
I guess that's true.
Because
Over
every single
here,
time something like that happens, you know there's going to be a huge straw man put forward, and that's the one they're going to take on, not the actual talking points that we have. I've never seen that happen.
right? And I know about that class because I watched it on Genetically Modified Skeptics channel. He talked about he did a video where he like watched Greg Kokel's like 3-part class or whatever and reviewed it, and of course it was all bad arguments.
Mhm.
The other one was there was another Paul Agia did a video where he like listened in on one of Eric Hoven's classes, right? Like how to engage with non-believers, and Paul actually like sent him a message and was like, "Hey, I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have," you know. And so actually, Eric had him in there, and so
I've been
they
in there
chatted
as
for a little
well.
bit.
I've been in there as well,
Yeah.
and been able to ask a question. I was not put up on stand. I was part of the audience that could ask a question. But yeah. And Dapper says Arn was invited
Oh,
to debate in a church. I don't
that's
recall
cool.
if
Well, Matt
Arn.
Dillahunty did one.
Yeah,
I remember a long time ago. Matt Dillahunty did one.
yeah, Matt Dillahunty did several with Eric
Yeah.
Hernandez in a church, and Eric
Yes.
Hernandez catastrophically lost all of those debates.
I think I remember him saying, like, Matt saying that like Hernandez was getting mad that like people were emailing him asking why he wasn't doing as well,
Mm-hmm.
something like that. Um, yeah. Oh, there was actually a debate here in Shreveport. Now that I'm remembering, between Frank Turek and David Silverman. They actually had it in the big mega church down the street from me a little ways. But yeah, so there was one here. I didn't know at the time that it was happening. I don't. I didn't know about it. Like I watched it years later, and I was like, "Hold on a second, did they say Shreveport?" You know, and I knew exactly where they were as soon as he said that. I was like, "Holy crap, I know where that is!" You know, so um, yeah, Turek's an idiot. I'd love to have a chat with him, but he would never do that.
Oh, that
I'm a
Dapper. I'm not sure. I know Arn was invited to either speak or debate at a church, and then as the date came closer, they said it wasn't going to happen. So it's possible that you heard that he was invited, but I'm not sure if Arn ever did anything in a church. I mean, I could be wrong.
has Christianity historically been in conflict with science? No, this is one from 3 years ago. Aaron Ra versus Tyler Vela. Okay, cool.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
Okay, thanks
I
for
haven't
that
seen that
one.
one.
I haven't seen that one either. I'm going to watch that. Thanks, Dapper. I'm going to
Look
check
at
that out.
Dapper bringing stuff to our attention. This is why
Yeah,
we pay him the big bucks.
yeah. This is why you're not in the intro. Sorry. Someone had to bring it up. He's in the chat.
Wait, hold on. Since you're updating the logo, can you also put Dapper in there, please?
well, so the other intro, I just finished rendering that. I think half an hour before we went live. But that is the one for your recorded videos. This one for this show doesn't have your actual logo in it. But I'll see if I can put up another screen and see if I can get some.
Well, I appreciate it. You know, Dapper, you say that, but I don't even have money myself, so the joke's on me. You know? I'm a poor college student. I have no money.
I mean, look at the screen. He doesn't even have decent internet. He can't even turn his camera on without everything going to hell. It just doesn't work.
Right. I mean, this is Louisiana. I can't control that. Left to help his home planet. He died on the way home. Okay. All right. Well, the only things I have going on this channel in the future are the I's Tale, which is the next in our Ancestors Tale series. The Howler Monkey was previous, and I finally did it. I did it. I had to make my own little graphics for a little bit of it because I could not find anything that would approach what I wanted. for some of it. So anyway, um, so thank you, Peter, for hosting and co-hosting as always. Thank you, everybody in the live chat for watching, and we will see you all next time.
Catch you later. Bye-bye.